Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Untold. It's the show you're accustomed to, where we bring you a lot of interesting people. We talk about their personalities, their stories, their journey, whatever it is that brought them here on the Untold chair. Today, we have our guest Aljazi, who's a PR and an art expert. She is a tremendous coach. You know, she's into drawing, she's into psychology, she's into holistic approaches. I'm sure it's going to be a great conversations with her. But before we dig into all of that, we are going to take a very quick break. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, from that break. Now, we do want to welcome you, Aljazi, for being here with us on The Untold. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, I think it's very customary on The Untold that we always try to go back to the starting point.
Mhm.
So can you tell us a little bit more about how you were as a kid growing up, exploring the world?
Okay. As a child, I used to be an odd child because I was an only child. So some would call me weird just because I was always on my own. So I found myself always deep into my imagination. And that's what sparked my creativity, I would say. Um, One of my earliest memories is watching, I don't know if you know the show Art Attack. I don't remember who the host was. I think his name was Nick Buchanan or something like that. And after watching his show multiple times, I became obsessed. And I think that show is what sparked my creativity to begin with. So I became a very creative child, had imaginary friends and stuff like that.
I mean, I think, we can all share a little bit of similarities there. I don't remember this one, but I do remember, similar programs like Blue's Clues that kind of
Yeah,
influenced my, artistic decisions back then at the time.
yeah.
Now, when it comes to your background, you grew up in Bahrain and grew up in Kuwait.
Mhm.
So belonging to two places, two wonderful, absolutely amazing places, did you ever feel like, you were always in a search of where you actually belong, or is that the feeling just never came?
I think I've always had a problem with the feeling of belonging, as they say, because so I'm half Bahraini, half Kuwaiti. And my Bahraini side of the family is more conservative, whereas my father's side of the family is more liberal. So I always found myself trying to find an in-between, and never feeling like I could fit in here or there. And I kind of developed a form of people pleasing, you might say. Um, that's on a family level. But then when it comes to Kuwait and Bahrain, neither is better than the other. But they're very, very different. Even though Bahrain and Kuwait are both part of the GCC and we share the same morals and the same values and we have the same traditions, but I kind of had a culture shock coming to Kuwait. I always thought that coming to Kuwait would be a lot more easier for me, like to experience. I came here when I was 25, but I realized that it was much easier for me I had freedom to express myself the way that I wanted to in Bahrain more than I had in Kuwait, which was really weird to me because I always thought of Bahrain being conservative because of my family, but it was the other way around. It's not to say that one is better than the other, it's just very different.
It
Yeah.
is, and I think, mashallah, you can see that even in Kuwait, right? You have certain, areas, certain places where it feels drastically different from the other side of the, street even.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my two grandparents' houses, one of them is in Bayan, one of them is in Rumaitiyya. Both of them are
Completely different.
completely different.
Rumaitiyya is so much more religious than
Yeah,
it is in
it's
Bayan.
like just one traffic light between both of them.
Right.
Yeah, so now when it comes back to the art itself, a
Mhm.
lot of people go into art because sometimes they feel like it is more expressive than words.
Mhm.
They can share their emotions, they can
Right.
show their true feelings to the world. So have you ever felt that, the same way with art? Is that's the way you communicate your emotions, your feelings better?
I always say that art or any creative process is more like a language, and there's reasoning behind it. So in my work, we use an array of mediums. We use structured material, unstructured material, and we use semi-structured. So what that means is structured and semi-structured is like markers and chalk pastels and stuff like that. Unstructured is when you use your hands. And both mediums activate systems in the body. So when you use semi-structured materials and structured materials, what you're activating is your proprioceptive system and your vestibular. So what that means is, see, when you close your eyes, you know touching your nose without having to look at your hand, touch your nose. That's your proprioceptive. And your vestibular is your, it's what makes you feel grounded and balanced. So when I say art is a language, is because when we come to the unstructured, we start using our hands. And in your hands, you have a lot of nerve endings. And what it activates, the fascinating thing about it, is that when you use your hands to paint, you activate your interoceptive system, which is when all the feelings come into your brain and you have no words to explain it, but it will translate onto the canvas. So let's say someone that's angry would come into one of my workshops and they're trying to express that anger, but they don't have the words to explain why the anger is there. So we use our hands to paint, and you'll see them tense up, and that manifests on the canvas by like stomping their hands or being really tense when they spread the paint. So that's why I see art as a language more than I see it as just art.
It is. And mashallah, we've seen countless examples of that, because straight that comes to my mind is the art pieces of Banksy. Just a simple painting. It's telling a complete story about the world, telling a complete story about a cause, even
Exactly.
if you don't understand the cause, you understand the humanity behind it.
Exactly.
I also remember vividly looking at an article about, I think it was Picasso, who suffered Alzheimer's disease, if I'm not mistaken. And then we can see the transgression of his art pieces as his disease goes along.
Yeah.
So art has a lot of meaning. It can show a lot of things that people
Exactly.
just feel so much better to express them. Now, when it comes to expressing your feelings, expressing your emotions through the medium so-called art, do you think there are some misconceptions that a lot of people have about this kind of idea?
Okay, so the thing is, self-expression in itself is an art form. So not everybody uses a canvas to express themselves. Sorry. You could express yourself by the clothes you wear. For women, the makeup they put on, your choice of perfume, journaling or writing. And there are so many forms of art for you to express yourself. And the funny thing is, people don't, sometimes subconsciously, they don't realize that they're expressing themselves through art. So I have an example of this. That happened actually yesterday. I was holding a workshop for two friends, okay? They both had the same materials, the same canvas, the same prompts that were given to them, and they expressed themselves very differently. One of them used the complete canvas as she was drawing, even though she was given the same instructions by me. And the other one left the whole canvas blank, and she just used the center. And I looked at that. And then after we were done, when it was time for reflection, I didn't want to give them an idea to think about, but I asked them a question. What did they think was different about both pieces? They noticed that the way they expressed themselves, the one that used up the whole canvas, usually is the loudest one in the room. And not in a negative way, but I just mean she takes up a lot of space when she's speaking about herself. And the other one always felt like she was unable to express her feelings the way she wanted to. And that manifested onto the canvas without them even knowing that that's actually their form of expression. So I found that very fascinating to see.
It is. And honestly, from going to, I wouldn't say a lot of art museums, but several art museums, even with my family members, whenever we're traveling and we see a painting, it never ceases to amaze me how I can have an interpretation for the painting, and then my family member, my mother or my sister or my father or something, they have a different interpretation. Completely different.
Right.
Sometimes I see a painting, I'm like, oh, this looks mad, this looks angry, this looks like the artist was feeling down at the minute. And they're like, no, they feel happy, they feel a lot of things. Art can say so many words that for a lot of people, just maybe it's like a miracle, right? Mashallah.
Yeah.
To be able to put your expressions into all of these, canvases. With that being said, we are going to take a very quick break and we'll come right back after this one. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, from that quick break. Now, Aljazi, I do want to ask you about something because, we've discussed a little bit about your interest in art, but also you've gained a lot of curiosity and interest as well in psychology. So can you tell us a little bit about the blend and mix of those two personalities, those two worlds, and how they mingle in your own work?
Yeah. So I've always had an interest in human behavior. I found myself always trying to figure out why someone said something, or trying to pick up on people's energies. Later on down the line, I realized it was a trauma response, but I didn't know that at the time. So that's where my curiosity for psychology was sparked. And as for art, art has always been a part of my life. So I went through a traumatic experience, and during my healing journey, I was trying to find a way for me to just release all the energy that was pent up. And I came across somatic therapy, which is just a big word for exercises that release energy that's pent up in points of your body. And I've always done art. So I mixed both of them together. And that changed everything for me, because it was so freeing for me to create without judgment, like create without the need for perfection. So I think psychology and art can really go hand in hand, because not only are you looking at the parts of your brain where that have shut down because of trauma or because of grief or because of whatever you're going in your life, but giving an outlet to that creatively also brings about like a childlike whimsy, and it really makes you feel childlike again, and it makes life feel less stressful and less serious.
It is,
Yeah.
and I think that's a great, approach to all things, honestly.
Yeah.
If you're doing things you love, you're approaching things with the mindset that it's what's keeping you, young again.
Hmm.
You're not gonna feel old as long as you keep doing what you're doing. And now, when it comes back to this, is something I remember from taking, I forgot the word, ikhtiyari classes in university.
Yeah.
I took two classes, and then I remember one of them
Electives.
distinctively, electives. I remember one distinctively because I remember there was an argument between a student and one of the professor. He was talking about, the rules of drawings, the golden ratio,
Hmm.
I forgot what the squares were called, background, foreground, like a lot of these kind of, I would say, limitations to artworks. And then the student was like, no, we don't need to study this to produce great artworks,
Hmm.
because then it's a limitation for our creativity. But the professor was like, you have to understand these to break those. So, all of this rant is just goes to back to saying that, do you feel that people, especially in the art world, should approach their artworks with, you know, unnecessary amount of limitations in order to fully achieve their creativity? Or do they need some kind of limitations just so they produce something that feels right?
Okay, art is subjective. So for me personally, I'm against anyone that puts rules on art, because a piece of art may look beautiful to me and it may look utterly disgusting to you. So it's subjective. You can't really, who's to say what's nice and what's not nice and what's beautiful and what's not beautiful? So as long as you're expressing yourself and you feel like you got some joy out of the process, the outcome doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? So if you see it as beautiful, then it's beautiful. And I think it's very limiting for artists to try to achieve this perfection, because perfection doesn't exist. And not everyone's going to find your work beautiful, and that's okay. And other people will.
It is, and honestly, it kind of reminded me about a very funny Russell Crowe actually video that
Hmm.
I
I
recently
love
watched.
Russell Crowe. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an
Yeah.
amazing actor. Some might say one of the best actors in all of history. And he was asked by one of the reporters, is that some film scholar, said the approach to acting is based on this or that. Like he was naming a lot of these big
Hmm.
historians, big book, authors and everything. And Russell Crowe just said, I just act. I don't
Exactly.
read any books about
Yeah.
acting. I don't do anything. So if you approach, the same kind of thing with art, if you approach it without having these limitations in your mind, that's just an open source for all of your, creativity.
True.
It is. And now for the other side of the equations, also, you have a little bit of interest in dreams, in their meanings, in their shapes, and how people approach them. So can you tell us a little bit more about, what dreams mean to you and how can people listen to them?
Okay, so I'm obsessed with dreams. I find it so fascinating. So I track my dreams because I like going into dream interpretations and stuff like that. And I found that it's so insightful for you to find out what your feelings mean. Like if you actually track your dreams and you think about all the symbolism, it really does relate to your day-to-day life. And I think a lot of people lose touch with their intuition, and they think that it's some kind of like woo for you to just think about your dreams and really go into the dream realm and try to interpret what messages you're getting from your dreams. But I think it's a wonderful experience, and I think everybody should do that.
It is an amazing
Yeah.
experience, and it reminded me of something that I used to do and still do, about the thing about taking notes of your dreams, because I spent a lot of time, and to the audience, are gonna find this concept a little bit weird,
Yeah.
but honestly, Google it. So I spent a lot of time, on lucid dreaming, trying to understand what
Yeah,
lucid
and
dreaming
astral
is.
projecting and stuff
It
like
is,
that.
right.
Yeah.
So one of the methods for lucid dreaming is to wake up and immediately take note of your dreams so that by time, whenever you're dreaming, your mental, images of the dreams you've had, you kind of know you're in a dream.
I can vouch that that's true because that's exactly what happened to me. Once I started tracking my dreams, I became much more aware in dream state. And it's really cool. Yeah.
It is. It's a surreal feeling,
Yeah.
Basically, I can tell them if you watch Inceptions, it's like that, but on a much lesser,
Yeah, obviously.
sound stage,
Yeah.
much Dolby stages. Now, for a lot of people, when they grow up, when they take responsibility in life, when everything gets overwhelming,
Hmm.
they stop, having this connection between their emotions, between their feelings.
Yeah.
They kind of just go through the motion. So, can you tell us a little bit more about, in your opinion, why do people, suffer those kind of fates?
I think I think it's just how life is now. It's just how modern day life is. You wake up in the morning, you scroll through your phone, automatically the first light you're looking at is not sunlight. So your circadian rhythm. Yeah. You wake up and you look at your phone, so you're exposed to blue light. Automatically, your body doesn't know that you've slept through the night and you're up in the morning. You think it's midday. So there you go, starting off your day, throwing off your whole body's rhythm. And then I don't know what's this thing with coffee, but everybody needs to have a cup of coffee in the morning. But you go to bed and you've just rested, right? So you wake up, you should have enough energy to go through your day. You take this coffee, it's a stimulant, so you go through the whole day like something's gonna happen, and your nervous system is all over the place and you're in fight or flight. And to get your mind off that, you scroll on TikTok, doom scrolling for like 5, 6, 7 hours. So of course people are not going to feel anything because we don't have time for stillness. We don't sit with our feelings, we don't do things with each other that don't involve your phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is, and you can tell it when you're having conversations, outside of, work or outside of things. People can rarely maintain eye contact. They're always,
Yeah.
fidgeting, looking everywhere. And that's just because, today people are always on the next shortest video, right? The next
Mhm.
shortest reel, the next shortest TikTok, the next shortest this and that.
Dopamine chasing,
It's dopamine chasing.
literally. Yeah.
Right. Now, when it comes to your art, when it comes to your drawings, when it comes to your, I would say, approach to art pieces, you've connected a lot of these ideologies, right? Between the dreams, the artworks, the creativity, unlimited creativity, the
Hmm.
nervous system, the psychology. And we do want to get into all of that. But just, to give you a little bit more time to, connect all of those dots together, we're going to give you a little bit of a break. And after
Okay.
the break, we're going to continue the conversation. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, now we did discuss before the break, your interest in all these sectors, the psychology, the dreams,
Yeah.
the approach to unlimited creativity. But when it comes to the relationship between the nervous system and the creative expressions that artwork gives people, can you tell us, about your ideas on this, your approach to all of this, aspect?
Okay, so it's very important now in a fast-paced life for people to really focus on nervous system regulating. And I know that a lot of people don't know where to start. So that's why I always ask people to just start with art because it's a very easy way to start regulating your nervous system. So when you do regulate your nervous system, what happens is that when you're faced with a situation, it's very easy for you to navigate through that situation without letting the situation sabotage your whole life. And that's the difference between someone that's regulated and unregulated, because everybody goes through hardship. But the difference is, when an unregulated person is faced with hardship, it can take over their whole life, and they can go into a depressive episode, and life stops for them. But when you have a regulated nervous system, what happens is that you face the situation, and then you can deal with it and let it pass, just like life should be. Like, things happen, there's ups, there's downs. So yeah, that's why in my work I like having the two together. I focus on somatic exercises and creative expression together. So I'll put people into an uncomfortable situation while we're painting, and that will get them worked up. And then we'll do somatic exercises to calm the nervous system, and we go back and forth from that. And what that does is that it expands the window of tolerance. So if you keep practicing that with that approach, eventually you'll have a regulated nervous system, and when you're faced with hardship, you can navigate it properly.
Is and you know, this approach reminded me of something, because I take music, lessons in my private time, and one of my tutors once said that practice in uncomfortable, places, uncomfortable situations. I was like, what does that mean? He said, don't always practice in the same chair, in the same position, the same, notes you're playing, the same rhythm you're playing. Practice in different room, different temperature. Practice in a hot room, cold room. Practice, uncomfortable seating.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
to train yourself.
Yes, it's to train
Exactly.
yourself to disconnect, your art from the, situation around you, whether you're
Yeah.
feeling uncomfortable, feeling whatever, just to have that art represent what you're truly feeling in the moment, and no, outside distractions.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to people, especially the ones who are new to art, who are new to translating their emotions onto these canvases, onto these, pages, do you find it that, it's best to let them explore and find their own meaning? Or do you feel like sometimes you have to correct them? Because sometimes when it comes to art, some colors are not great with other colors, some lines may be, incorrect. So
No,
do you feel like you should point them to the right way, or just let them figure it
never.
out?
I never do that. The worst thing for me that I can do is try to interpret someone's work for them, because we all have different value systems. So what I may deem right, you may deem wrong. So I can't give people advice on how to live their lives. What I do is I facilitate a place where people can sit with their emotions and really reflect on what's going on in their lives. I can direct them in the way of thinking, but the answer has to come from within. It can't come from me, because at the end of the day, I'm not a psychiatrist. My process is not diagnostic, so I can't give them a diagnosis on what's going on with them. What I try to give people is the opportunity to be self-aware and be able to reflect on themselves even when they're alone, and know what's going on in their life. Yeah.
It is. And speaking about what's going on in life, modern life is so hectic, it's so busy, it's
is.
so overwhelming. There's an information overload, everyone is just, they feel like they have to be somewhere, they have to rest someplace,
Yeah.
they have to catch up, they have to see this, they have to look at that.
That's an unregulated nervous system.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it
yeah.
does. Yeah.
And I'm on the opposite side of the equation, right? I think for a lot of viewers, or a lot of colleagues who know me outside of work, they can easily find out that I'm such a boring person, right? I rarely talk, I rarely do anything. I'm just, enjoying the stillness of life. Now, when it comes to this stillness, a lot of people feel uncomfortable in it. They feel the unfamiliarity with, sitting in one place and taking the moment in feels so uncomfortable, feels so awkward to be in. Why do you think, this happens with a lot of people?
Just like how let's say you tell a child not to touch the stove so he doesn't get burnt. Yeah. He touches the stove, he gets burnt, he never goes near it again. So the same with people. You go into a situation, you experience heartbreak or loss or grief or whatever it is, and then you try not to put yourself in that situation again, because you don't want to feel those feelings. So you start occupying your day with things to do to get your mind off of things. And because people have done that for so long, when they actually sit still, there's so much energy and so many feelings that they haven't processed yet. It all comes up to the surface and it becomes so overwhelming. But if they had given themselves the chance to deal with the situation at a time, it would be so much easier for them to stay in stillness.
It is, and I think, once they can bypass that feeling of awkwardness, life just gets much better. Now, when it comes to misconceptions, especially about holistic, practices,
Mhm.
a lot of people feel like there's some mystical aspect to it. It feels like it's an unstructured, approach to
Mhm.
all things. But what is it that you want people to understand about your approach to it, the intentional, grounded way to look at it?
People think that there's a magic pill that you take and all your problems are going to go away.
If only.
But that doesn't happen. That's just not how life is. You're always going to be faced with things. Everybody goes through trauma, everybody goes through heartbreak. And that's the beauty of life. For you to know joy, you need to know the lack of joy. For you to know how to love, you need to know how it feels to lack love. So it's important to feel all of your feelings. So it's not really a mystical approach. It's a holistic approach is just an approach without the meds. You're trying to just retrain yourself as if you were a child learning to walk. So it's a very slow process. You're not going to feel the effects of it straight away. It's something that you need to implement into your day. And then as the days go by, people will realize that a holistic approach is the best approach because it's sustainable
Yeah.
later on. Yeah.
And honestly, the best approach to all of these, say practices is to have something sustainable.
Hmm.
Now, when it comes to our final question, I think we've gone previously in the episode about people who feel disconnected, from their emotions, from their, I would say the true self, right? They're just going through the emotion. So for those people who don't know where to begin to kind of connect with themselves, to find themselves back again, can you tell us a little bit more about how can they approach, finding themselves back again, I'd say?
The easiest way to go about it, I would say, is track your emotions. So track your day. You wake up, track how you feel. You go through something, track how you feel. Write them all down for you to be able to recognize those patterns and recognize what triggers you. So, yeah, the best way to get in touch with yourself is really to track your emotions instead of checking in. Some people might find it weird to check in with themselves, or maybe they wouldn't know how to explain it. So for me, it's just write things down until they feel natural and you're able to see a pattern in the tracking that you've done.
It is, and I think
Yeah.
that, from my point of view, this message I could hone it for a lot of men because for a lot of people, a lot of men, especially we are a little bit afraid to talk about our emotion. But, I just can say to the audience, find your al-khawi, find khawiyik, and just tell them all about your day. It can help tremendously in the way you feel. With that being said, Aljazi, I do want to thank you for being our guest tonight on The
Thank you
Untold.
for having me.
Well, all thanks goes to you, honestly, and all thanks goes to the audience as well for tuning in. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now, dear viewers, we are going to take a very quick break, and until we wrap the conversation on the episode, let's stay tuned. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've had a tremendous episode of watching as much as I enjoyed talking with Aljazi Rumi. That was all of the time we've had on The Untold. Honestly, a lot of great insights about art, about psychology, about understanding our emotions. I hope you took a lot of great things from the episode. Until the next one, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned, but it is goodbye for now.